Hey guys, glad you're here. Before we get into the content you want to see, we gotta talk metrics. If you remember last time, I said, maybe I'll get 3 whole subscribers this time. Well, let's just say I greatly underestimated the growth rate of this series. They're getting kinda thin up here. Now I promise this won't be the last time I bring up subscribers ever. Anyway, after 2 exhausting vaults, I decided to make my way to New Vegas for some R&R. But I was barred for being too poor. Can you believe 4 caps wasn't enough? So to make some extra cash, I figured I would scavenge another nearby vault since nobody else ever went into apparently. After going through 2 active vaults, I thought going into an empty vault would be easy pickings. I thought it'd be a quick open and shut adventure. Little did I know, chasing the story of this vault would bring me all the way to Zion Valley in Big MT. All because I went into the vault. Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, let's go back a bit. Here's where my trouble started. This jerk, this waste of oxygen, this vile excuse of a sentient being made me fork over 1/4 of my life savings for a tip. And he undersold the dangers of the vault by saying food is abundant and people are never coming back. Clearly don't want to come back. Why would anyone leave paradise? When I found myself neck deep in danger, I made a promise to myself that I would come back for my cap and his life. He would pay for this. I still needed cash for the strip, so before diving neck deep into the dangers of a vault, I scoured the sewers to see if there were any corpses that people threw down here that I could loot. Despite the war having ended 200 years ago, it was rather corpseless. But I followed the sound of cheering to an underground fighting ring. That was where I met her. I was in love. Until she told me that she raised animals to fight. I wanted to know about her quickly and told her I'd bring back some mantis eggs or whatever she was asking for. I was willing to see anything to get away from that vixen. It was probably going to be 18 years of child support. After getting out of there, I heard rumors about some bunkers on a mountain. I thought maybe I could loot one without filming it because a bunker is different from a vault. Before I knew it, some weird cult was asking me to help them fix their air conditioning. I suggested that if they're hot, they take off their heavy armor and weird robes. I realized those were necessary after many guns were leveled at me. I agreed and left saying I needed some equipment. Joke's on them, I have no idea how to fix an air conditioner. Do I look like Troy Barnes to you? Community reference. Man, that was such a good show 200 years ago. Remember that awesome movie they did that definitely wasn't a letdown? After 2 busts, I was desperate for anything. I popped into the local military camp to see if they could spare some money. This is still the United States. Perhaps we're still bloating our military. No dice there, but I found the kitchen and thought maybe I could at least mooch a free meal if nothing else. But just my luck. Their processor is broken and their food sucks. Nothing here can go right. They wouldn't even let me monorail into the strip. I was just about ready to accept defeat and leave, but I popped into the science looking room to see if they had any drugs I could sell like a fiend. Instead, I got to meet this insufferable doctor. He offered me a job, to go to Vault 22 and steal the research so the NCR can up food production and sustain the growing population. This was the paradise old Uglyface told me about. This sounded like a dream gig to me. I could go, eat a ton, get some research to help the world, loot the vault, and maybe get a nice sum of cash to get into the strip. Then, Angela Williams stepped in. She told me that mercenaries that went there never came back, along with their fellow researcher, Keely. This did give me some pause, and then I prepared accordingly. After promising I would try and find Keely, which for me meant just seeing if she was in my path, I headed off. I had a weird premonition that maybe this would be more dangerous than I thought. I think it was a sign. Whatever it was, it made me aware of all the deadly bugs right outside the vault, and I spared none of them. My first thought was Vault 22 is weird. Most vaults up to this point have been hidden away in a mountain or under garages. Normal places you would expect. But this one can not only be stumbled upon by anybody, but it's openly advertised, and lacks the extra layer of protection from radiation that comes from being under something else. It just seems like an odd choice, but it sure does make stumbling across it much more exciting. I hope mantis would be my biggest problem, but I was so wrong. First thing I noticed was the vault door was so overgrown it stopped functioning, which meant I couldn't get an opening and closing vault shot for this video. Very sad. Inside, the overgrowth continued, and there was a computer online in the entrance. Keely at least made it this far, as I found her 2 journal entries as well as her temporary camp until she went further in. She confirms more people made it in, but never made it out. Going further in myself, I'm immediately greeted by a broken elevator. I fixed it because I didn't know what shape I'd be in when leaving, but opted to take the stairs for cardio. I'm a courier after all. I went down to the 2nd level, which was oxygen recycling. Strange that I don't remember the other vaults caring about these things. Very weird. They continue with the aesthetic down here where plants are growing everywhere dirt exists except the main hallway. I found a computer with a noise complaint from the original residents, but I'm sure that's nothing important. I then found Keely's next 3 journal logs, where she concluded that the level was used for studying atmospheric effects on plants with a concentration on producing plants with a high oxygen yield. I found one more room that was barricaded off, but I could see more mantises in there, so I didn't look too hard for a way in. With nothing left for me on this floor, I went down to food production hoping for a snack. Instead, I found an abomination of mankind, but I was prepared for it. Then Veronica stole my kill, but I made sure it was really dead. I took a second to examine it. It was some sort of humanoid creature that was hiding in the plants. I was curious about them, but Veronica kept killing the others before I could ask them questions. Thankfully, Keely figured it out and documented it. These creatures were former scientists who got overgrown with lichen. Ghouls aren't affected. God, they have all the luck being gross abominations with skin falling off that could turn feral at any time. She also reported that this was the area where all the research was, but I was still hungry, so I prioritized my meal. Before finding my meal, I stumbled across another computer that survived from the early days of the vault. I learned the source of these monsters. They contracted a virus that took over the scientists after killing them. The first who died was Dr. Peters, and even though his corpse was moving around, people weren't too worried. More importantly though, I found food additive. I could spice up my meal just like the British never would. Things are finally looking up for old Ben. I also found another security terminal about a spooky cave that opened into a vault where people died. Again, didn't seem important, so I dismissed it. Partially because I was hungry, partially because spelunking wasn't in the job description. I went down one more level and found even the overseer's office wasn't safe from the plants, but it did allow me to unlock the rest of the vault. I then took a short break to use the bathroom. But after seeing mushrooms growing out of the toilet, I decided to hold it. Veronica also passed when she saw how bad the woman's bathroom was. And finally, I found food in the form of pork and beans in a locker. I couldn't read the expiration date, but I assumed they were still good. Because I had to believe they were still good. I also learned Vault 22 likes to party. They actually had a bar, which when someone down here was brewing alcohol. I want to find that. Not because I drink, because I don't, but because alcohol means a source of caps. I just think it's really cool this is the first vault I found in the bar. They also had pool tables, adding to the aesthetic. And the last of Keely's journals. There used to be a trivia game, but Keely deleted it for her journals. I would have preferred the trivia game. She concluded a good portion of the vault residents died in these rooms due to an airborne spore virus that could pose a danger to the NCR. Good thing I've been breathing through my nose this whole time. Also found fresh produce in the kitchen, which is weird to me since no one's been here for a long time. I was more suspicious of that than moldy food, so I'd state my pork and beans. Found a maintenance computer with more spore-related complaints. Lame. And finally, the infirmary computer showed how dozens of vault dwellers were getting infected. And by that time, it was too late. A fungal infection fills their lung and later reanimates their corpse to attack non-infected humans. It's quite the leap in evolution and needs to be exterminated for the good of mankind. And since nobody was watching me, I started raiding the rooms for vault suits because something told me I would eventually need them to impress some lady, burning abominations as I went. I also found the Vault 22 cave keycard, so I figured, why not take it? The last floor down was blocked by a barricade, and I forgot I fixed the elevator, so I thought the only way down was the cave. But at least it gave me another chance to kill mantises. To break the mantis' spirits even further and to ensure they never come back, I took their eggs. I found one last lore computer which I devoured. They documented 3 of the species they were working on. The first was BE908, or Big Ol' Venus as I called them. They made them much more dangerous by making them stronger, and be able to lure and prey with a scent of nectar. The next was Mantis religiosa, and as it turns out, these idiots are responsible for the giant mantises that roam the Mojave. They deserved whatever they got. God, I'm so stupid. I'm just now realizing they're called Mantis religiosa because they're giant praying mantises. Oh, that's such a bad joke. The last one is Biavaria mordicana, and I'm realizing I retained none of my 2 years of Latin, which is a shame because I hear it's a popular language in these parts. Surprise, surprise, this is the one that kills people and controls them by making a fungal colony within them. It was supposed to only be used on pests, but you go from having pests to having pests with the fungal colony, so I don't see the point. At some point it became airborne, and that's when it started spreading in the vault. And that is why we always follow lab safety protocols. Veronica and I made our way down to the 5th floor and found some big old Venuses. She was immediately taken in by the nectar and tried to hug them, but accidentally killed them instead. I also found this cool gun, the AER-14 prototype, next to these spooky Halloween decorations. It appears to be superior to the standard laser rifle, but I don't know what these numbers mean. It also takes 2 microfusion cells to fire rather than 1 energy cell. I assume that's because it turns the laser green. After taking the rifle, knowing full well it was shoved in a junk drawer forever somewhere, I finally found the data for the vault. I could have left after this, but I promised that cutie I would look for Keely, so I kept going and found another cave filled with abominations, which actually included Keely. After 5 seconds, I understood why Hildern didn't care about saving her. Instead of a thank you, she makes me help her. She also makes a remark about fixing the elevator, which makes me wonder, if she could repair it, Why didn't she do it earlier? She wants to get rid of all the spores, which is valid, but she wants me to do the dangerous part and burn them all. Don't know why she can't do it. I went and put myself in the line of fire, and I managed to avoid the blast. Veronica was not so lucky. But it's what she gets for stealing my kills. I would have left her if she wasn't wearing my stolen power armor that I took from those hippies. After that, Keely asked me to delete the data so it can't be replicated. But I have gone through too much to get this data to let it go. For a split second, I had a vision that she tried to kill me when I refused to let her delete it. Knowing this, I used science logic to convince her to let me keep it so that humanity never makes the same mistake again. I finally got to leave this vault and headed back to Hildern, but talked to Williams first, where I learned phones are still a thing. Keely called and tore Hildern a new one, so I guess she isn't all bad. Williams gave me 800 caps, which was a good start, and Hildern gave me 1200, which was enough to get in the strip. Still, even after being paid, I worried about the data, so I warned Hildern to be careful, and he assured me that he would follow lab safety protocols. Then he asked me to have faith in him because he was the government, and that made me worry. The thing that really worried me is there weren't enough spore savages to account for every vault resident. I mean, there was only like, maybe a dozen? Which means they were still out there, and I had to find them. The strip would have to wait. I wasn't proud of this, but I knew I was gonna have to execute them all to prevent the spread further. I heard of a caravan going to Zion Canyon, and knowing there was safety in numbers, I signed up hoping to find a whiff of the remaining vault dwellers. I thought I struck gold immediately with this guy, Ricky. He's wearing a Vault 22 jumpsuit, but it became apparent pretty quickly he had no connection to the vault. I thought about chasing him off because I knew he would only cause problems for us, but he would be a decent meat shield. And honestly, there are some people the world would be better off without. I might be one of them, but he definitely was. Things were going pretty good, but eventually everyone in the caravan but me got wiped out. This left me stranded in Zion Canyon. I got wrapped up in some other adventure, but that isn't relevant. I found my first trace of Vault 22 in some of the caves. Their abominations were thriving, but I cut them down to size. After a good bit of exploring, I finally found it. Vault 22's camp, where they lived after leaving the vault. I was ready to slaughter them all and apologize while doing so. However, someone beat me to it many years ago. I killed the remaining spore carriers and was puzzled by what happened to the dwellers until I found a holotape left behind by the 7th Overseer of Vault 22. In it, he detailed that their party of 118 was reduced to 34 in just 11 months. Some died to sickness that they took from the vault, at least one ran away, but most of them were killed by a single man, who they thought to be a vengeful spirit. I thought about following their trail, but it was cold since it was, over 100 years ago. And there's only 34 of them left, probably all sick. They wouldn't have gotten far, and even if they did breed, they'd probably all die by now. But I want to talk about the man who killed most of them. It was this hero, Randall Clark. He was a war veteran who was living a solitary life in Zion Canyon using his survival skills right after the bombs dropped. By the year 2096, roughly 19 years after the bombs dropped, he was keeping watch over a group of Spanish settlers. He left them supplies when he could, but he never let them see him. He was worried about them surviving winter, but they would have, if not for Vault 22. Early February, Vault 22's expedition came in, killed all the men and any of the women and children who resisted. Only 2 women and 5 children survived, and they were immediately captured. Clark started planning a rescue mission, but it wasn't too long before it was too late. The members of Vault 22, former members of a civilized society, ate them. I have to wonder what step I missed in this progression to see them becoming comically evil. Step 1, evacuate the vault due to global bombing. Step 2, evacuate vault due to pandemic. Step 3, question mark, question mark, question mark? Step 4, slaughter and eat people? Clark then waged his one-man war for nearly a year before Vault 22 gave up and ran away. After eating their own fallen, of course. All but one, Sylvie. Being a woman in a barbaric group apparently wasn't great, so she abandoned and never got ill. She accidentally got caught in one of Clark's traps, and he wound up taking care of her and teaching her how to survive since she only knew Vault life. They then made a baby, and that baby helped take out another Vault 22er. It breached. Clark tried a cesarean section, but it was too late. The baby was dead, and Sylvie never woke up after being put out. He lost his second family, and he still lived on. 7 years later, he saw the spore carriers for the first time, and he tried to kill them, but I guess he missed a few because I had to take some out. Perhaps I really did find the last remnants of Vault 22. Unfortunately, the rest of his story has nothing to do with Vault 22, so I'm not going to finish it here, but I downloaded his whole journal and uploaded it to the net, so I'll leave a link. It's incredible and deserves a read. Now satisfied that I cleansed the air of spores, I left Zion Valley to finish what Randall Clark started. These spores, or whatever they are, did not come from the vault, and they sure aren't natural. They were shipped from somewhere else. I called in every favor I could and eventually tracked the source to the X-22 Botanical Garden in Big MT. It was a pre-war underground research center, and the Botanical Garden was just one of its many facilities. When I discovered its existence, I immediately went there and my horrors were confirmed. I found patient 0 of the spore carrier disease. I put them out of their misery along with the other original contractors. I destroyed any remaining spores and left. I killed every spore carrier, cleansed every area they were found, and made sure no more existed. My and Randall's work was complete. I thought I'd finally earned my vacation in the strip, but first I had some unfinished business. I returned to the NCR to give Captain Farber the food additives to make his food not suck. I returned to Red Lucy and gave her the mantis eggs since I wanted them to perish in the worst way possible after they hatched. And lastly, I gave Rotface what he deserved, and fittingly, nobody cared. Unfortunately, I guess he ate my cat because it wasn't on him. At that point, it was getting late, so I went back to my room in Novak knowing the strip would be my destination in the morning. I had trouble sleeping, so I did some more digging and learned that the X-22 Botanical Garden purposely infected Vault 22, which means Vault-Tec must have been in on it. They purposely contaminated a vault full of brilliant botanists in the name of their experiment. Some of humanity's most important people, one of our best hopes for survival, and they tried to doom them for their experiments. At least this vault was successful in its original mandate. As awful as it was, the residents of Vault 22 did enter the vault, survive the Great War, and then go back into the world. To disastrous consequences for a lot of settlers, but I digress. Even Sylvie reproduced, as short-lived as that child's life was. Honestly, it's a miracle that anyone made it out of Vault 22 at all. All those spores flying all over the place, you'd think they all would have been killed. I mean, that was the plan, because despite what the public was promised, the vaults were never meant to save anyone. Hey guys, glad you're still here. I went in a bit different direction for this one, where I pretended that I was journaling my visit into the vault rather than just detailing every aspect of it from a third-person perspective. Let me know if you prefer one style over the other. If you can bother to comment. I want to please viewers because I'm desperate for internet fame.